Hello, today is finally Tuesday the 23rd of July and the launch of Ethereum spot ETFs. So here are the tickers for the ones that have been approved if you want to look them up. So the key thing for me is today is this going to be a sell the news event? Because I have bad memories of the CME futures launch of Bitcoin futures. I don't know which way it's going to go. The thing is that, really, if we think about it, Ethereum is just not viewed the same way as Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is seen very clearly, I think, just as a electronic store of value, whereas Ethereum is a much more kind of picks and shovels and working units of crypto rather than just a pure store of value. So I think it's going to be really interesting short term to see how the market reacts to this launch today. So yesterday we talked about the consolidation zone that we are in Ethereum. You can see that basically since the beginning of March we've been in this really nasty sideways coiling up range. We're right in the middle of this range here. If I put my fibs on this most recent swing, you can see that we validated this 236 fib here at 3,000. We're holding above it here at 3,500. We're stalled. 3,391 for me is key support. If we pull back underneath it, we're going to do one of those 61.8, 38.2 moves. If we come down here, we could argue potentially we're going to do a bigger, maybe head and shoulders bottoming pattern. And quite often, in this 61.8, 38.2 fib retrace zone, it's called the golden ratio zone. It's often where the bulls and the bears kind of fight it out. And that's exactly where we are in this zone. So obviously continuing above and holding above that 3,500 level, we will see more upside. I think that potentially we could come and holding the support from the lows here. Potentially we could argue we could see a bigger kind of three-wave correction here like this. Back to 3,391. That would be quite bullish. I think some people might argue that this is a sideways zone. Now, are we going to see a big bang after the open? I honestly doubt it. I think it takes time for these ETFs to get going and build some momentum. However, they're all doing very similar to the Bitcoin ETF launch, which of course were wildly popular. In these, they are all waiving fees for some of them for the first year, which is quite a long time, really. It's I think they're going to be positive. By ETF standards, Bitcoin has been a massive hit. 1.7 billion in net flows since they debuted is massive. But we have to also consider that, Bitcoin is much bigger than Ether as well. In 1.3 trillion in total assets, it's kind of 3 times the value of Ether, which is only kind of, I think, about 414 billion, 400 billion, something like that. And so that may kind of limit the appeal to investors as well. So a lot of uncertainty right in the middle of the range, and those are the two levels I'm looking at. When I'm not sure, I kind of put high Kanashi on. If we go red here, I'm looking for another swing lower, to be clear, to test the lows. And so I don't think this is going to be super wildly bullish out the gate, but I'm certainly not going to call it a failure yet. I know a lot of Bitcoin maximalists want to do that already. Let's just be careful it's not a sell the news event. An awful lot of the markets I look at, especially altcoins, are at kind of really interesting resistance levels. Let's talk about Bitcoin, which has been, let's close some stuff down here. Bitcoin, which has been really wildly bullish since everyone thought Donald Trump was going to be president, and because he's effectively a god because he survived an assassination attempt. Now that, of course, Biden has stepped down and all of this money is flowing in for Kamala Harris, what we seem to be seeing is people reassessing the chances that what they thought was a sure thing, which was a Trump win, and we may see a little bit of a pullback in the Trump trade. If we do like we have done with Ether, instead of looking at these as two big swings, but we look at the fib levels from this most recent swing that we are in, let's talk about where the key support for Bitcoin is on a pullback today. So if we go from the highs that we made in June to the lows that we made on the 4th of July holiday, we've reached one of those 786 fib levels. So if this little consolidation that we've been in since the weekend here breaks down, our key support is 64,900, or basically 65,000. But that's the fib level. For me, in terms of fib patterns, from this high to this low, if you reverse to the 786 fib, then the 61.8 must hold as support if we're going to keep going higher. If we break underneath it, the fib pattern says that we are going to pull back to a minimum of 60,500, which is the 38.2 here. And these 38.2 and 61 fib levels are messy. So I can see us doing a full kind of bigger pullback retest of 60,000 here. And, we have to say that could this just be bullish consolidation and we keep going higher? It could be. I'm just saying that bigger picture, underneath 65,000, we do risk a bigger pullback and a bigger kind of at least a 10%, 10% pullback from where we are now back to retest 60,000. So that's what I'm looking at the moment. I'm keeping my Heiken-Ashi on, looking at this pullback, but it's all got a little bit toppy, and we are at the risk of a bigger pullback here in Bitcoin. So what about some of the other coins? Let's talk about AI coins. I really think the big theme for this year is meme coins. I also think that they're much better and easier to trade than certainly other, it used to be in the beginning with altcoins, really complicated exchanges, anyone with a phantom wallet, trading these meme coins. Well, I think the best thing about these meme coins is there's no leverage, with a phantom wallet or decentralized, which used to wipe accounts out. Now, you can join a community, buy a meme coin, and without any leverage, you can't be taken out, you can't be liquidated, you hold your position, and you can just learn to sit and wait until it does finally go up again. So that's kind of why but let's talk about the AI coins first. So first off, I'm switching between black and white screens. I'd really like it if you told me which ones you prefer. I'd like to switch to black, but some people prefer the white because they can see it better depending on where you're watching. So the biggest of all the AIs is, of course, Nia. When I look at this, for me, this is a very bullish pattern here on the weekly, holding these weekly moving averages and this very nice sideways three-wave correction. So very much like a lot of the bigger blue chip, Bitcoin, ETH, so on, in a big three-wave correction. But my concern with this one is we're doing one of that 50% things. So we pull back 50%, we rally 50%, and this is what I mean by that. So here we are on our big consolidation pattern. So from this high to this low, here we are at the 50% level reversing. And mean reverting markets tend to keep mean reverting. So I think that we could see a bigger pullback to 50% here, which means back to 5.2, and we're not there yet. If we break back underneath this weekly moving average, for me though, if you're looking at Nia, I think that's where we're going. And then, if we keep doing this 50% thing, you keep looking for it to break. So you would look for it to bounce here, bounce 50%. And if it doesn't, if it breaks underneath and keeps going, then that's the pattern broken and we're headed lower. So that's what I'm looking at in Nia. But if we look at some of the others, I have to say that I'm feeling a little not quite so bullish, I have to say. So what about the meme coins? Let's look at some of those or some requests. First off, Floki. If we take a look at this one, this is another one. for me, you know, this could be very nice on the weekly. Flag patterns, sideways consolidation. If we say this was 5 waves up, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you would look for a 3-wave correction back to this swing low. And one thing that kind of holds me back is potentially, you know, we could end up being in a bigger sideways zone here. Are we doing that 50% thing that we just talked about? No, this is a 38.2 retrace. Let's change the color so we can see it. So there is room for this one to go higher, but it's a pretty key resistance level. Now, what about some other markets? Let's take a look. For example, sushi. Here's a really good one. Support becomes resistance, resistance becomes support. If we look at this on the weekly, here we are in a really kind of nasty sideways bottoming pattern. And again, even if you like this one and you think this 5-wave move should be over and we should be on our way up again, up against resistance. So in a really kind of tough pattern. Let's take a look at a few more before we go. I've got them all here. But yeah, Solana is a good one because a lot of people have been anticipating a bigger bullish move in Solana as the next coin that may, you know, potentially be put on an ETF. I have to say that I'm not seeing it here on the daily. We're also having a little bit of a bigger pullback. So we've hit our kind of double. This was a nice double bottom, just like here. So you can see what happened here. We made a double bottom, hit a target, and then have a bigger retrace all the way back. Flat moving averages here on the daily. If we take a look at this on the weekly, is this a bullish pennant? Potentially. I'm a little bit worried though. This is not, you can't draw it like this way. Let me explain why. Because trend lines have to have 3 touches. Quite often you will see the 3rd touch be a false breakout. And if we look at it on the daily, potentially this was a breakout. It doesn't look like it on the weekly. That means this really needs to hold a support, and we don't want to fall back underneath this breakout level. You know, a real breakout tends to break out, doesn't come all the way back immediately and keeps going. So if we're going to keep going in Solana, this breakout level around 170 needs to hold as support. If we put our fibs on from this low to high, we're going to look at where that 236 fib level is, and we kind of like them. They work best these when they line up together, and if we say our 236 fib level is actually 169.50. So as long as we don't close back underneath 169.50, potentially, yes, this is a bigger breakout. But it's not compelling, is it? I have to say that I'm feeling a little bit more bearish with this price action. For everything. And potentially a little bit of a bigger pullback. Now if we put our fib levels on, I'm going to put it within this big swing that we are inside of here. You can see that we broke above this 61.8 and 190. So I think if we don't close underneath that 169 level, we should look for Solana to continue higher to 190, potentially a little bit further than that. That would then make this a big kind of 3-wave, and then we would look to go beyond that and so on. But everything is in a little bit of a pullback today, and I think all eyes are going to be on Ethereum. And if Ethereum doesn't do so well or suffers a bigger pullback, so will Solana. So watch out for that.